Okay, thank you so much for being here and for being really to meet with me for to discuss um, drum solo performances and especially your drum solo project to help me out with my PhD research. The first question that I wanted to ask you is if you could tell me something about your background, about how you started to play drums and to perform solo. I was particularly interested to know about when you started playing solo and what pushed you to start this practice.
So I played drums since I was really, really young. And I don't know really what drew me into it. It was like a natural process, given that nobody in my family is creative or into music at all. It was just one of these things that I don't know. I felt a bit like things that life leads you to in, and maybe watching TV and the videos and music videos. I was just drawn. I always loved drums, and I thought it was like fantastic, and it was the backbone, but at the same time not too exposed. I really liked that, and um, and so yeah, it was kind of a natural process. I really didn't think consciously or force anything. I just kept doing since like really, really young what I loved. And my parents never actually encouraged me, but never actually stopped me. They wanted to understand what was going on. I don't think still to this present they understand what I play, but at the same time, they never said, they never been like, no, you cannot do that.
Yeah.
But I come from a very kind of bourgeois background where they don't understand that music can actually be a profession. So I was always being like, okay, you can do that, sure, but what you want to do in life? What would you do as a job? And I've been always wanted to do this. So I graduated in law because everyone in my family is lawyers and judge and stuff,
Wow.
and I loved studying, uh, law as such, but I never wanted to be a lawyer and never wanted to do any other thing. And yeah, I'm very lucky that I could just dedicate my life to this. And then I moved very, very young to London. That is a city that is not, it's very hard, when you're just like a little girl playing drums and stuff. But I think I never conceive my the fact that I was a woman or the fact that I loved the drum and I wanted that to be my job. I never thought it was a problem. I just did it in a way. It just went through. It's like, I took few crap job when I first moved here, and then the minute I could get my own place and stuff, I just dedicated myself completely to my work. And I started playing in loads of bands, replying to adverts and stuff. I still to this present day, I find them really funny, all the music advert. I would like to do some sort of art exhibition at some point because I like what people write on their post note. I think it's very relevant to the taste and what's going on and what people and kids thinks is relevant. Because there's a lot of band that I actually hate that they're not that offensive to me until they made it to these post-its and until I realize that realize they are relevant to taste, and then I think they become obnoxious to me back that like then, because there's loads of like really band that I don't like, but when they become something that's more offensive to me.
Yeah.
And so back to your question, how you started performing solo, I actually never did. It was something again that came to throughout the years. I started playing the drums and approaching drums in a very different way and trying stuff through my bands. And I had a duo called Tomaga, and I was doing lots of experiments on metal. And I realized more and more that people were coming to my show, and instead of saying, great gig, great music, they would say, you are a great drummer. And at the beginning, I thought it was a real compliment. And I'm like, wow, I mean, great. And then more and more, I thought, this is a failure because I'm trying to say something with someone else, and the ultimate message should be the music. And people just come to me and said, like, wow, the ghost notes or whatever, or your snare sound. And then I kept going and enjoying loads of more collaboration and stuff until my agent and my agency, they're doing an incredible job for me. They kept saying, look, they want you to perform on your own. Would you do this in the gallery? Would you do this in the thing? Da 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 da. And then I started doing like more artist stuff with it. And then the COVID came in, and I had the chance to open all my sonic diaries because I always record stuff. And then is how a queer anthology of drums, which is one of my album that I did in 2020, came about. And people really resonated with that. And then I was like, oh, would you tour? Would you do solo shows? Blah, blah, blah. And this is exactly how it started. And then since then I released a couple of live albums,
Yes.
and now they are pestering me to do the next solo album, which is something that I am working on slowly, because I got tons of music. I kind of make music every day, and this is how it came about. But to be honest with you, I love collaborating, and I favor playing with someone else. Um, Although I find it very flattering that I always have time for a monologue with people and like to express what I think. And sometimes it's liberating because on a solo you can do what you cannot do with other people. So it kind of is balanced up. And
And you don't have to compromise.
I don't have to compromise. Yeah, and it keeps my job fresh because I couldn't be the artist that release an album and then tours it for 2 years, the same fucking gig. Like I can't do that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I'm so privileged and grateful to have a creative job, so I need to move. It's like catch me if you can sort of thing. I don't need to impress anyone.
love it. Um, but yeah, I went through your albums, and these days I was listening to many of your, solo albums, of course, and also some of the, the rest of your material. And I feel there is consistency. Like it's very consistent what you do as a soloist and also with the, with other projects. So I think it's, it's different facets of, who you are, different aspects of
I like to think that I have a vision, and it's great when I hear that you can grasp elements on everything that I do, because it's very important to have an organic vision of
exactly.
of what I want to say. I think is is what I like in other artists in a kind of narcissist and self-centered way, because I listen to so much music, and it's not really there is to me two factors that are really really important for me to enjoy and love my listening. It's like obviously taste, which is completely indeed like it's personal and stuff,
Yes, yes.
but I find that loads and loads of artists have lack of vision, and then they just lose themselves in like being derivative and just wanted to sound for what's trendy or what is retro because they are attached to what they used to sound. And I think it's all great, but you have to take him into your own world. And, taking all these references is fantastic and it's very creative, but then you have to make it yours, in a safe space where you can actually recognize your artistic vision. I think that's what I like about what I listen to and other artists that I admire.
So, and talking about other artists you do like to listen to, what were your influences when it comes to solo performances, if you had any, and also what kind of made you possible to in terms of references to develop your own artistic vision, if
It's
you
a, it's a hard question because sometimes a vision is something that I would call that a gift.
okay.
Or, when in a way that when I think part of this vision is, for example, to know where you when you're in the studio or where you're live performing, to know when a piece is done,
Yes.
to know where the performance stopped, even when you're improvising,
Yeah.
to know when that's it, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's when the real vision kicks in. And it's not really easy to explain because it's like the Force in Star Wars or the funk in James Brown. You don't know, like, until you feel that I think this is it and this sounds good enough to me and is enough to envisage and to say what I want to say. And that's the same when you improv. And then it's like, how long do we have to play? You don't know, but you know when you're on stage, do you?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think those are moments that, again, I think that's the magic aspect, the magical aspect of music, because it's something bigger than you. It's something that is there and tells you, you know? And then it's great when it's encoded through your practice and when people resonate with that. I think it's really beautiful, beautiful process.
Definitely.
Uh, Back to the to who I really admire and vision. I mean,
Like what
I
maybe
say that
more
few.
also like in terms of aesthetic, if if there were some particular players that influenced
Yeah,
the
like
way you approach to solo set.
I will never be tired to say that one of my mentor is Milford Grave
Okay.
in terms of drummings, but and I'm really happy he had only lately he had a few, well, it's passed
Yeah.
not long ago, but only lately he really had more exposure and vision, and I always thought, why is he so underground and just like throughout like the jazz people. I mean, it's still very niche, to be honest with you, but
Yeah.
his early records, like Babi or something like that, are still like 500 euros, 600 euros, and now only recently been repressed. But the vision that this man had is something that brings me to tears and is really motivate me to cultivate the rhythm and the percussion as such. There is a documentary, I don't know if you watched it, it's called Full Mantis.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I mean, I think is the most beautiful thing when he makes these neurodivergent kids with the really serious motoric and neurological problem. When he makes them dance, just playing the drums, that's what it's all about. To be honest with you, and that's why is the whole the studies of his
Yeah.
heartbeat
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and the fact that the whole thing is like incredible. I think it's one of the it's very inspiring, very inspiring. But there's so many others, you know. I mean, there's uh, uh, so many incredible artists that even like modern artists that I really love. I just recently put an album out from Irene Bianco because I spent a lot of time in Copenhagen and I realized that their conservatory is really something else.
Yeah.
And then I'm working on the next release of another incredible percussionist, Karen Willem. Beautiful vision, you know. She picks up a trumpet. She's just it's incredible women that do and inspire me every day. And yeah, I mean, there's so many.
Yeah. 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 Wow. Thank you so much. I'll go like check the ones I don't know.
Incredible.
And I was like reading through your the descriptions of your album. I was checking out some interviews you did, and I was interested to know more about the influences you draw from folk tradition and ritualistic practices, like how do you approach to them, and how do you embed them into your playing, given I guess like your more academical background. That's right.
Yeah. So I think part of a big part of this and of my luck is to live in London. Because I think this is the city where you don't have to travel much to travel, even if I do travel much ultimately, but that's what the city brought to me. So when we talk about folk and all the world, not in a toxic way, world music element. It's just down to my collaborators that I can choose, and like to have the incredible honor to make album with people that with the African background or Asian. Like now I finish like a drum electronic in Kansai in Japan because I was just traveling there extensively. And then before that, I just finished this incredible work that I'm really proud of with Nidia, and she's Afro-Portuguese, so she brought a lot of like African beats. And then I work with like Arsenal Arsenal Mekebe. They are like a niege niege. So there's like to have the honor to drum along African drummers, that's where the real,
Yeah,
I
the
mean, the
deep
real
and
deal.
the yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's completely a different, fresh approach to our approach.
yeah,
So I'm extremely lucky, I think. What brings the folk element, as you say, is the fact that I exchange with so many nationalities, and I just love it all, I finished these two album actually lately. One with a incredible producer. She's a DJ. They are a DJ from Amsterdam, and so like very glitchy. They
yeah.
do all like electronic stuff. And then, as I say, YPY, which is in Goat, Japan,
Okay.
which is a very incredible. Like the drumming is insane, and so I had the chance to do so many collaboration, and that brings the sound, I hope, fresh, because I
Definitely,
don't want to do the same record over and over again. And
definitely.
so to be able to collaborate with people like this, that I often choose, but sometimes it just comes along, you see. So
Yeah.
it's very incredible.
So like these collaborations kind of made you able to free yourself from that
100%.
more like academic and traditional approach you had and I guess in
Yeah,
jazz institutions.
I think so. Yes, for sure.
Nice. Cool. And I was interested to know in your solo records and performance, what do you think is the role of composition, improvisation, and programming? Because I guess like I could hear you do a lot of that in your records, and I was also interested in knowing if you included electronics from the start, the start of your solo performances, or if that's something that came in later.
Yes, I think with especially with solo performing, i I kind of, at the beginning it was purely acoustic, and I think that's very strong. I love that because you have like, that's what you have, is raw, is you, is exposed, and it's beautiful. Then I started to play in huge festival where I'm like, okay, I really need to be programmed here in terms of space and time. We have a like a 40-minute slot. And even if I said before, you always know where you end. Sometimes when you're speaking and you're just on the drums, I don't know, I might play for 3 hours because I need to go and I need to get into and unfortunately, this is corporate, and this is when the music industry really fucks your practice. You sometimes you have to really strictly oblige to 40 minutes. So I started like organizing a sort of narrative,
Okay.
and I thought, okay, if I do a backing track and I can just move, then I'm free to go to the vibraphone, to like percussions, and then sit on the drums. And I try to organize it like this to give like a little snippets of of what I'm capable to say with percussions. And I think so far it's been is has been working.
Hmm.
And but I always change the backing tracks. I always make it. I in my head I would love to have like every show different from the other if I'm only performer. But of course, with the backing track, you would have like a sort of skeleton that goes through. But for example, tomorrow I'm going to the States and I changed the backing track slightly. I added some stuff, added some beats
So
and
you
see what's
produce
going
it
on.
based on the field recordings you have, like that
It's
you
based on field recordings. It's based on obviously me recording some beats and producing them.
yeah
And I also have like incredible people to help me making it sound good. So mastering it. So you make sure that if it's big speakers and stuff, we can pan stuff. We can put up effects. I always work in the studio, making sure that whatever is coming is good.
yeah interesting.
Mm.
And so so you have like basically like this backing track that that gives the kind of the structure
Directions,
of the
yeah.
direction and the structure of the piece. But I think I also heard some performances like the one you played at Otto Cafe, and I think you released it in La Tempesta Colorata, where it's more yourself at the drums, and I think you play with some delays. There are some drones who come in and out. You have glockenspiels or bells here and there. So you don't always work with with pre-recorded material. You also in a more like performative and improvisatory maybe setting. You just
Well,
go up
let's
before and
say let's say that, for example, when it's Cafe Otto is like 10 minutes from here walking. So when it's London, I have the chance to bring my own stuff.
Mhm.
And by that, I mean I have a crazy, crazy collections of gongs, for example. This kind of stuff, I mean, for partly because I'm very lazy, but also because sometimes and most of the time I travel by myself. I try to put as man as I try to just, if I can, just traveled with sticks,
yeah,
couple
super
of
light.
pedals. Yeah, because otherwise my life would be like even more
Yeah,
complicated
yeah,
than it is logistically.
yeah.
So of course, when it's like a London, I can really have fun. Like last Saturday, I performed the Run House, which is a big place in here in Camden. It's like 2,000 people, and I wanted to do something completely different. So I bought this ridiculous marching drumming set.
Okay.
It's like six drums that comes on a corset, so you have to wear it. And I asked one of my friends to be a human drum, just like holding it for me,
Like
just
wearing.
all in black.
Okay.
Yeah. And it looked incredible because it looked like a Dada piece. And so I could just, playing on I tune it really what I thought it sounded really good. And then I could just play on those marching. But those kind of things you can't bring. It's huge, it's like it's like six floating drums. So you can't bring this on a plane.
Of course not.
So, yeah, when it's down to London or where I live, of course you can even more. But when I travel about, it's difficult.
Yeah, of course. And so, what's the recording process of your solo albums? Like, do you made like this background tracks yourself first, and then you record drums on top, or how? And I was also curious to know how you adapt your live set based on the recording material you published. Like, is there a connection between the recordings and the solo you play? Or they are they can be whatever like
I did both. I did completely new pieces and just delay pieces with like vibraphone on like on the verge of feedbacking because it's very interesting to me. I did like performance where I usually lots of contact mics because I love the metal and stuff. But lately I also try to insert some sort of more songs because I've been doing it was more songwriting, and I take some stems, I take some elements, and I just introduce them as a drone, as I'm drumming. Or I did a piece that I really loved for this Australian label called Longform. Was called Different Rooms. And then I really like this piece because it's like all with brushes and stuff. So I took all the stems, took the drums out, and then I performing that live. That's kind of thing. I don't have a modus operandi because I think it's more like whatever intrigues me. And also the room is always another element, right? It's
Oh,
just like another band member.
yeah.
So I have to read the room all the time, and few things might not
Work.
work. Yeah, I always have a USB with like 3 or 4 different shows.
Nice. I see.
Yeah.
And so, like how what is your process when it comes to like studying a space, studying a room? Like, do you ask to get to to sound check maybe like multiple hours before the show in order to be able to
1 hour.
1 hour, okay.
1 hour. Never
Okay,
more than 1 hour.
okay. Yeah, so you don't.
Yeah, I think it's enough, and in a kind of like also festival environment. I never want to over welcome my stage presence. So I tried, yeah, to be, 1 hour is fine.
Okay,
You
okay.
gotta,
Also to get used to the room and have,
yeah,
yeah,
if I can, not always, but if I can bring my own sound people, then it's great because they can have like also effect from the desk. They know how I play, so it's much more compelling.
yeah,
But it,
definitely.
it depends. You don't have always this chance, do
Yeah,
you? So.
of course. And so instead, in terms of like the recording process of the albums, the solo albums, can you elaborate on that a bit?
I mean, it depends. Every album is got its own
Yeah,
like story. So yeah, for example, the Queer Anthology of Drums got loads of field recordings and phone recordings that I've been collecting through the couple of years that I just opened on when I had time during the pandemic. But then La Tempesta Colorata or Rotta are just like live shows,
yeah,
while all the other like VZ, like my album with Zongamin, I really wanted to write songs. So it's completely different process. Like completely different process. I was sampling a lot of um dance hall and reggae, um, because I got obsessed by this woman called Sonia Pottinger that nobody knows. Like everyone, when I'm a big dub fan, I have like a dub thing, and everyone goes about Lee Scratch Perry and Augustus Pablos, fantastic producer, yes, but this woman, she was like responsible for the drum sound for over like more than 2000 productions.
wow.
And she had like Sky High and Gay Feet. She had like two great dub label, and just the production on the drums was so good. And I started like sampling that and trying to emulate that and trying to, it was just completely different approach.
But so like the drum part that then you play live comes from the interaction together with the with all these field recordings and the
Yes,
tracking, or
100%.
so the process is like first you make the the background recording and then you play on top of it and you
Yes.
decide how to interact with it.
Yeah, or sometimes I come out with a beat. I recorded the beat and then I think, okay, that there's something missing and I add stuff. Um, to me, making music is like playing with Lego because I know like all the frequencies and all the pieces that needs to go, and I'm thinking, oh, we're really caring for something that is more mids or highs here. So I make maybe like the crotals or like the vibraphone, or like we needed more sub. And then I play with the construction until I think in my head it makes sense and it sounds good, and then like boom, it's done.
Yeah. Wow.
I never walk back.
Yeah.
And I'm not that kind of musician or artist or producer that has like 300 version of the same song. I can't deal with this process. I mean, I respect it, but I'm not that kind of, I'm a very impulsive and impatient, and I love to capture the moment. And I love to just move, you know. I might sometimes you make an album and it comes out 6 months later, and I was like, I'm not even that same person. I mean, the content like until then is, yeah, I still think um it's good because I must have signed it off and thinking it was good, so I'm never regret the taste. uh, but you're a different person and you want to move on and do something else by the time it's out.
Of course.
Hmm.
Of course. And so before you said that the first tryouts that you did with the drum solo performances were basically on on the acoustic set. So in your live performances, how yeah, could you talk about how you implemented electronics into the set, like as extensions of the set, probably, and also how did you figure out where to spatially locate them. You mentioned pedals before. Probably you have a computer, close to you.
No,
No? Okay.
I really don't like the look of a computer on
Yeah.
stage.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that pisses me off when I go and look at other people.
Okay, nice. And so, like,
Oh,
you have your engineers send the backing track.
exactly.
Okay.
Sometimes I had a sampler or something, or a pedal that I
Uh-huh.
start online. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the computer
So you don't
on
use
stage.
Ableton, like you just use it to produce, and then you produce
I
like.
use Logic, but at home.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, some like maybe Tessa Apsami, she uses a computer, but she's like an electronic producer on stage. But yeah, I try not to. I think it's very disrupting in a kind of narrative
Hmm.
when you just want to move and just want it to make it look organic. Then you actually are interacting with the objects, you know.
Yeah.
I like this raw, this simplicity um, of of what people are, you know, because it's kind of humble. It's just you're just there, and I like to romanticize that. I could definitely play a show if the electricity goes,
Away.
and
Definitely.
not, yeah, and not depending on on the electronics, on a piece of gear all the time.
Definitely.
I think again that's lack of vision. Because if the electricity goes, then you don't have anything to say. You just have to shout. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
Never mind. So that's I think just always important in the back of my head
Yeah.
to think this.
Yeah. And in terms of like I the the pedals, for example, that you were mentioning before, like if you have played around with how do you position them, where do you put them, use them with the you mentioned
Usually just next to me, like I have a little box.
on the
Sometimes
on the left side, close to the hi-hat.
I'm on the right side.
Right side.
Because usually I have the vibraphone on the right side.
Okay, yeah, right.
On the left side, sorry. I
Yeah.
am completely can't do left and right.
Neither.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes I place it on the even on the kick with a bit of Velcro.
Uh-huh.
It depends. I don't have a
You don't have a like a fixed
no.
way to do it.
I am free like that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Um, and I was also going to ask you if you could talk a bit the experience with the Batterie Fragile, I guess, the
Mhm.
with that record, with having this this new instrument built with you. What was the learning process of that, and I heard in the recording some, drones that you were probably reproducing with the rubbing your fingers or
Yeah.
on the drums or bouncing ball on drum surfaces. So I
I
wanted
mean,
to know what the, that discovery process was and that experience.
it's an incredible art piece, this batterie fragile, and it was cooked, like the kiln, like to cook that big, because I think all the drums are like, if I'm not mistaken, they are 14 inches. So like a snare,
Yeah,
and everything is been cooked in this huge oven. I mean, it was incredible. I was so wow when I first
can you
saw it.
that the process of making
I
it?
mean, because basically, he Yves Chauveolet is like the French artist that conceived it and released this. The first piece that is done, they called me and I went to see at the Museum of the Belle Art in Tours, and I was like so impressed. And I didn't have much time to study the instrument because they asked me, would you do like three different performances of 20 minutes for people to appreciate the piece? But I only had a couple of hours with the instrument before this to actually study it, and I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. So that's why I started to take different material, and applying rubber would give me like a cello
Mhm.
sound, like,
Yeah,
"Oh."
yeah,
And it was like, wow, this is so beautiful. And then they filmed this three different performance and they put it on a 10-inch, beautiful, like a really beautiful object, I thought. After that, he did exclusively, and he cooked another kit just for me to do the second album. And the idea was to actually tour because loads of venues and stuff wanted it. It became increasingly difficult because of the hard handling and to transport the peas, obviously, really fragile.
uh,
So, um, I kind of, after a couple of records with this instrument, I had to kind of give up because
give it up.
also he wanted to sell it and give it to me, but then I live in central London, and of course, because you can see I've got so much stuff. I don't have the
Have it,
space for a
have it in
porcelain
the
kit,
house. Yeah, yeah.
and that's the sad.
Sad
Um,
story.
yeah,
But
but I mean, but it's beautiful and very honored to have done that because also it was very conceptual, wasn't it? Because I keep going on about how macho the drums is, and I watch constantly because on my Instagram I have all these feeds of these guys just with double pedal and gravity. It sounds
drumming.
awful, but
Yeah,
it sounds like really butchering. I don't understand. It's so vulgar. It's like butchering a cow, and I really find it. Um, I take it personally because I find it very limiting and very disrupting for the drums. It's some wonderful instrument, and you in my head, when you play drums, you have to add something to whatever's going on and not detracting, thinking like, look at my balls, look how good I am. It's so disgusting to me.
respectful. That's true. Yeah.
I just can't deal with it.
Yeah. By listening to your albums, of course, like you cannot avoid, grasping, so much extra musical messages which are embedded in the music. Like for example, in the Queer Anthology of Drums, like there is like this queer element and women with X, women and non-binary gender, binary, non-binary, minority inclusion message that really comes through within your records. And so I was wondering if you could talk about uh, how do you represent these extra musical contents through the solo performance, and also in a wider terms, what are you trying to express to the audience with your performance?
So I really, in the queer anthology of drums, it's I really was trying to refer it like the adjective queer as in like not just inclusive and obviously representing, my who I am and how like my queerness and the fact that I am gay or whatever. It was it was like a little more conceptual than this in a way that I wanted to enhance the inclusiveness related to the instrument. What I was saying earlier is like I think that it's always misrepresented drums
Mhm.
and is always conceived in a very conventional way. Even the way that elements are placed on a drum kit, that you have to like the hat and the snare and the kick that way, and a queer anthology of drums was a queer way of approaching drums in a way, like in an unconventional way of approaching drums that is just like serving a bigger scale of a sonic scale and not just, as I was telling you before, those gravity blasts or like just telling people, look and what I can do and how like look at my paradiddle or whatever, or like my single roll, look how incredible I find it insanely boring.
Yeah.
And it's the same applied to the heteronorm and the way the society is concerned. I find it excruciatingly fucking boring. The fact that people can't open their mind and think that every single one of us is much more than that. And it doesn't have to be judged because of their sexuality, because of their, like, whatever you want to say. But, like, I just find it so limiting. So it was just more broadening it up a world and thinking, just open your mind. And then obviously it's a beautiful title. I kind of nicked it because I had during the pandemic I was reading this little compendium by Pilot Press, very independent press, and they had the Queer Anthology of Joy, the Queer Anthology of Pain, and then it was like a way of like giving a 360 degrees vision of what this feeling is. And I was like, wow, I want to apply this to percussion, to
Yeah.
drums, to What's My World. And then I'm like, and it worked out incredibly well because I got the intellectual, I got the percussionist, and I got the gay people, which is what I wanted. It's my favorite audience. And so of course, it turned out to be a very successful diary and a very honest, intellectually honest way of expressing what I was going through at the time. And it's still it's still very, very relevant to me, to my career. I got the signature sticks, Queer Anthology of Drums,
Oh,
which
so
I love. I will send you if I see you, and whenever I meet you, I'll bring you some really
please,
beautiful
please.
sticks.
Wow.
So, it's more it's just like open your mind and it's music. And I know I don't know. You probably come from a very academic background, which is absolutely incredible. And I'm very lucky to have studied and to have the technique. But again, I like to deconstruct. I find the deconstructions process much more challenging than the learning one. And at some point of my life and my career as a musician, I was like, oh my God, everyone is studying the same method and is studying this. And it's like everyone is reading the same fucking book.
Yeah.
And is really, you have to preserve your individuality on it.
Yeah.
And you have to just refresh and just be free for a moment. And, I cannot be pretentious and say like, oh, just pretend that you never play drums because that's not gonna happen. And I hate pretentious. That's another thing that to me kills music and the art. Pretending to be someone else, no. But try to just be free to like to open up toward most of time when I work with a radical improv musician coming from the conservatory or orchestra. I've been working on a piano concerto lately. It's really incredible how they just like in a
In a
box,
box with their
most
non-episodic box.
musicians,
Yeah.
because if you tear up the page, they are lost.
Definitely.
it's not a cello anymore. It's just like I don't know what I'm doing in this room anymore. I find that incredible
Yeah,
because what we're dealing here is just like channeling creativity, and it shouldn't be limited.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I was also, some, thoughts that I had about, like like how our drumming and our approach to the drum is so intertwined and so influenced by the historical and anthropological biases related
Yeah.
to the identity of the drummer, um, and in the way, in the way we play, in the way we comp, in the way we time keep, like also like the function of the drummer within an ensemble. It's so, connected with, the historical and anthropological, design of, the drummer performer, uh,
Yeah.
those years. And so, what was the process of deconstructing that for you, and of finding your own identity as
I
a
don't know. I find myself sometimes to question when I hear some interviews from the guys, the big drummer that used to be also very influential in my career. Sometimes I tend to disagree with most statement. Like the other day, I was one of the drummer when I was a kid that made an impression because it was kind of like original in terms of playing rock, like dub and rock at the same time, was the guy from the Police, right? Stuart Copeland, a very good drummer. And the other day he said, I was reading or I was talking to uh, someone, and he said, "Oh, but the real thing about drummer, a real drummer ultimately is who's the one that can keep the time." And I processed this, and I'm like, partially agree, and then I was like, I don't know though. Why?
yeah, yeah.
Like sometimes I see all these kids that are incredible in recreating a drum machine. Again, why?
Yeah,
You have a drum machine? Like, I
like
don't know.
an actual drum, you mean? Or yeah,
Yeah, like, why not adding something to the drum machine? Or why, like, there's a lot of a project that I'm involved with where I conceive the drum like a solo. Why it has to have like the guitar to have all the solo thing?
yeah,
Through a structure, you can have like a beat going that is like electronic, and you just, you play with dynamics, you shout or you whisper, and you can just move
yeah.
with drums, with percussion. It doesn't have to just keep the time.
Yeah, 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 but
Surely,
it's so good to witness how many drummers right now are kind of like reinventing and kind of like broadening, the possibility, the soloistic
yeah.
possibilities of the drum.
Who's your favorite drummer at the moment, or like who's your favorite one of your influence?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm having like I'm interviewing so many of them that, all of them are really bringing something special. I really like, Christian Lillinger, Sofia Borges, Pedro Meno Alves, all people that kind of like with the, implementing,
Vision, yeah,
like extensions and that to the drums are kind of rebuilding, the identity, of like the
yeah,
drummer performing yourself.
yeah. It's great,
You're really revolutioning, the way drums is conceived. I think, which is, very,
inspiring.
very inspiring, and and that's, it was time to do this. I think. Um,
Yeah.
and in your experience, do you think there is a connection between the way you play and, your gender and ethnical identity?
Oh, this is very difficult question because
I give you an example of that. That's something that I've been, thinking about a lot. For example, for me, when I used to, when I, when I started play the drums, I was always so afraid to play loud because, like, as a woman, I feel, they educate you in a way that, oh, you need to be quiet, to respect the elders, to, not to bother people, to, um, to behave, when you are, in a group context, and so I've always feared, like to embrace basically the power of the instrument, like and really to kind of be able to fully experiment growing up, and also now I feel it's also like uh, an aspect which is embedded in the way I play and in the things I like also in the music and in within experimenting with the instruments like I don't know, maybe that can inspire some more thoughts
Yeah.
for your experience as well.
Well, I never had this internal, fight with the dynamics. I never thought, oh, I should be quieter or louder or whatever. What I always felt is like, okay, I grew up being a woman playing drums. I mean, I think the gender definitely kind of determines a little, at least if not my way of playing, at least my obnoxiousness or the fact that I'm really fed up of all this convention shit where you always, wherever, no matter how established you are, you will always find someone that as a compliment will say you are good for being a woman.
No,
Like there's no way you're gonna escape from sexism from
no,
that.
no.
And I've been talking to so many people about it because even my dad the other day was like, but it's not that people want to discredit you. It's just that if you never seen a woman drumming, of course it's like for them it's something different.
Extraordinary. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, there's the whole shebang and the whole politically correctness that now is around embracing minorities and the difference or whatever take difference because historically it's always been just like for predator being a minority or something different, something to be against or to be colonized or to be squidged or to be like bloody killed for. So of course it's complicated, isn't it? So I realized that when I was a kid because in Bari in southern Italy I was just circus material. No one ever took me seriously. I was like, ha ha ha, it's just a laughable thing. Then I got really heavily into jazz, and that poses another massive, like, oh my God, a white person that really into, bebop or something. I had a, a time where I was just like collecting Blue Note records and starting to do all the blue, and people like, you can't play jazz if you're
As a
white. And then it's like, okay, I'm a girl, I'm white, and guess what? I'm even gay. So what am I gonna do with it? So what my approach was like, you know what? I'm just gonna
rethink it.
rethink it and just make it mine and try not at any point to be disrespectful or culturally appropriating anything.
Mhm.
And obviously I justify myself working with people from other culture, and it's like, you know what, if I work with um people from Africa, everyone, I can just bring my own minority case and whatever. I really struggle to define, what I should be sound like because it's so unconventional, and it's like on I fail on any
The
point
boxes.
be,
You
to
don't
be a
fit.
normie. I don't belong. So I'm like, for this, I'm like, okay, then music becomes one big thing, and obviously I'm super respectful not to appropriate any of it and just make it mine and make it quirky or like playing with metal. I mean, I'm a massive fan of what's also like industrial music or, loads of Western and white man music I've been listening to when I was a kid. One of my favorite band was The Cure when I was young. So it's a whole collection of things. I like to think that music is just one thing at the end. And
Yeah,
I'm very avid listener and it's never ending. I always trying to look for something that really surprises me and is new and is fresh and less derivative. And so yeah, I don't know um how should I sound for who I am, because who I am and what I want to do never fitted in
category.
anywhere. And that could be freedom, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think so. Wow, very interesting thoughts. Thank you for sharing this.
It's complicated, yeah, but
Yeah,
that's yeah.
I know, but like I guess just by the fact of being aware of all this, the biases, coming, within, the tradition, and the fact that the drummer is also always conceived as like this cisgender male who embodies feature of like strength and virility, just by being aware of this biases, and it's good to be able to say, okay, I
I'm
just
a queer drummer.
exactly, and I want to get distant, and put some
Yeah.
distance with that, and then like you develop your own ways in the practice to kind of like distance yourself. And so, do you think the playing solo for you has anything to do with the feeling of like isolation, like social isolation as well? Like for everything you said about your being queer, a woman, a white woman playing drums. Do you think?
It's definitely a way for me to express myself because I don't particularly feel articulate enough with words. I don't particularly good at interviews or like I don't I wish I was good writer. I'm really jealous of people that can write lyrics and
Mm-mm.
have their vision in words, and my vision is in sounds, I think. So the solo show is just a way for me to really express who I am, what I feel, and I mean, it's a beautiful way to channel all your feelings. I feel very lucky because when you're down or when you're happy, you have this way of like just expressing it, and it's intelligible, but at the same time, a lot of people resonate with it. I feel more and more than my music speaks to someone, and at the end of a show, to come back to what we were saying later, what really makes me proud of what I do is in no way ever someone that's gonna come and tell me, you're a very good drummer. That's gone. In 1 minute, I'm like, you know what? I'm arrogant enough to think, yes, I am a good
I know.
drummer because I haven't been I have been doing this all my life. So if I weren't good, I would have had like
Wouldn't be
serious
here, of course.
problems. What really makes my day if I have more and more, right? Women especially coming after the show and it's like, I watch you playing and I want to play the drums.
Yeah.
And that makes me always like, always make me like very emotional
Yeah.
and very much like validating what I'm doing. And I'm thinking like, wow, this is incredible, the job that I'm doing. And this is why I want to do it. Just inspiring and thinking that culturally, it's totally like it shouldn't be weird for a woman to drum. Like I don't understand who started associate, maybe because of the violence. I was always thinking that too. It's because it's like it's associated with aggression and violence that is male. It's
Yeah,
like a more masculine. I really think it takes so much of a such beautiful instrument to limit it like this. And so yeah, that really makes my heart going.
yeah, definitely.
If anyone really, but especially if there's a woman, because I'm like, come on, it's like I feel that I'm actually useful for something, you know, because I'm very lucky and successful in as far as I'm concerned for what I want to do and what I want to achieve. And I live with music, which is incredible. And so now it's time for me to be a vector for inspiration and to just like put loads of incredible other women musicians out there and celebrate their practice and their music, you know.
Yeah, and I guess like, performing solo is even more, you know, it's even more a statement of that because like you're totally naked,
It's
it's,
intense, yeah,
it's a very exposed
100%.
position, right? And so like really like yourself and just the drums on the bandstand. It's I guess like it's a really like a testimony of of like inspiration and really like just by looking at it, it's like a new model that you're giving to the audience and to people coming
I hope
to see
so,
you.
yeah.
Nice. And so like, do you feel that especially by playing solo, there is like a tighter connection somehow that you can establish with your audience? Do you feel like the difference with you playing solo and playing in other context?
It's as you say, it's more exposed, it's more intimate. But I do love duo
Hmm.
also.
Yeah.
Because with the duo, you have less pressures, of course, but you are 50% of the conversation, and you still, at some point, like engage with the audience in a kind of personal way. But there you have this another person just like taking the heat off, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's probably my favorite dimension. But
Interesting.
then you have trio, you have orchestra, and it's always different. And it's always like, of course, in the orchestra, it's not, it's also beautiful because your ego goes away and you're selfless and you're just like serving. And that's also very beautiful.
100%. Nice.
Yeah, I guess in the solo, the ego comes into place a little bit because it's just you and the audience. And I don't like the approach of like a teaching, like teacher, like look at this or listen to this. It's more like you are part of this. You
Okay.
can do this, you know.
And do you think the audience can connect with that vulnerability that you're showing
I hope so.
you're like,
Yeah,
okay, yeah,
I hope so. I mean, I started most of my show lately, I started on the floor or on the
okay,
chairs or reading the room, you know? Just very raw and basic and there and just me, the sticks and the audience and grasping like faces or what's going on. I like to start very minimal, you know?
yeah. And so the reaction is very positive to
Yeah, I think it works. I think it works because as you said, you're naked and it's like, I think it's interesting. And
nice.
every room sounds different. So
Mm-mm.
I like that.
Okay. I guess I have one last question for you. Unless like you feel like there's something important I should know we didn't touch upon.
I don't know. I think we covered quite a lot.
Cover quite a lot, right? Um,
Professionally, of course.
yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, I guess like the last question is like, why do you like to perform in solo? Like, if you have like one main reason why you say, okay, this is something that I really like doing.
Why?
Why?
Um, I mean, I think we covered this in a way that is like is your way to be completely free.
Okay.
So I don't have to wear any ears. I don't have to, to talk to someone else. It's a monologue. It's something that you completely exposed. And every time, I think every solo show you get the adrenaline. I'm not very I'm not a person that's never like nervous before a show because I'm quite excited by the show. I can't wait to go on stage, in fact. But with the solo show, because you're so exposed, I feel that you learn for every show you learn something new, and
About
that's really
yourself,
important.
or
No,
you?
about the message and how to deliver a message about yourself. More like technical things and what works and what not. And so, I mean, I played more than, of course, like by now more than 1,000 show, but I think every show feels different, and I like this. It keeps it really fresh for me. I think this is the best thing of the solo show that I really love.
Like the discovery process
It's
of
always different because with my band, mine, for example, I have in ears, we have a set list, you're there to serve the songs. And with Vanishing Twin is the same. With Holy Tongue, I mean, it's different because it's more like dub. So I have scope to go within the dub realm to move a little bit. So it's more like jamming at points, but still you have structures, you see. So I think solo, you're completely free. So sky's the limit. And yeah, the backing track limits a little bit in terms of like dictating the timing, but overall it's just me floating, with my thoughts and my emotions through it all. So every day is different from the other.
nice, beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Valentina,
Thank you.
for your time.
Lovely to chat. And where you based?